Hello and welcome to Shocktober and the latest Arrow Video live stream Q&A. We're really thrilled tonight to have the filmmakers behind The Deeper You Dig coming on the show very soon. My name is Mike Hewitt and I head up the sales and marketing here at Arrow.
And I'm Michael McKenzie. I'm a senior producer at Arrow. I've worked for Arrow in various capacities for just over 5 years. I had the great pleasure of overseeing the Blu-ray release of the film we're here to discuss tonight. In addition to some of the recent ones I've worked on have included Graveyards of Honor, Silent Running, and basically anything with this guy's name on them.
Some of our best releases, Michael. Yeah. And obviously, yeah, you've worked on The Deeper You Dig, yeah, I love this film. I don't know about you, but well, I do know about you actually. I know you loved it, but yeah. I was so thrilled when I saw this, and we acquired it a few months back now, and it's getting some brilliant reviews. It came out this week. It came out on Blu-ray in the UK on Monday. It was out in the Blu-ray in the US yesterday. It's also available on our Arrow SVOD service that's just launched in the US and Canada. And it's also available on our Arrow video channel in the UK. So hopefully you'll have seen it. If you haven't seen it, don't worry. We're going to keep this Q&A fairly spoiler-free. And we're going to segue now into a trailer. Once the trailer's finished, we'll be pleased to bring on the filmmakers, John Adams, Toby Poser, and Zelda Adams. Here's the trailer for The Deeper You Dig.
I need to report a missing person. Her coat is gone and her sled is gone, but if she went sledding, she didn't come back.
We're looking for your neighbor's daughter, 14-year-old girl. She's been missing since last night. Have you happened to see her at all?
No.
On the night that Echo disappeared, she reached out to me from the darkness. She revealed to me a sign. Tell my mother what you've done. A sign of the 7 circles.
The 7 circles are unforgiving. They are locked in grief. And for you, who's turned her back on her calling, you will pay dearly.
I'll pay. Echo did not run away. Something terrible happened to her, I know. She reached out to me from another realm. I need you to help me find out what happened to her. But you can't help me find her. Only I can do that.
Tell my mother what you've done.
Great. Please welcome the filmmakers from The Deeper You Dig. Guys, welcome. Please introduce yourselves and let us know what you did on the film.
I'm Toby. I play mom, Ivy. Ivy.
Hi, I'm Zelda, and I play Echo.
I'm John, and I play Kurt, and we want to thank you guys for inviting us, and everyone that's listening. Thanks for joining us.
Brilliant. No, it's great to have you on board. Do you want to give us each your sort of one-sentence take on what The Deeper You Dig is or what it means to you? Your sort of elevator pitch on the film to those who maybe haven't caught up with it yet.
I think it's a triangle of tragedy and how each point of the triangle deals with tragedy, because you watch things happen in life and you always wonder how the different points of an action deal with it. And that's what it is, a triangle of tragedy and how they deal with it.
I think it's about love and grief and the extents that one would go to for love.
I can't even improve upon what Zelda just said. For me, from a mother's point of view, it's about the strength of bonds and love, and that nothing can squelch that.
That's brilliant. Now you're a family unit. You're a filmmaking family team, husband and wife and daughter. You've got an incredible background. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your filmmaking background? How you came to your first film was Rumblefish back in 2012, 2013. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into the filmmaking sphere, as it were?
Sure. So we were living in Los Angeles at the time, and I just got hit 40, and the roles, I was primarily acting back then, and the roles had really started to wane. And I was grumbling a lot about that. And John kept saying, you know, we should make our own film, write your own film. And so that's what we did. And we got into an RV, and we hit the road, and we made our first film, really not knowing what we were doing, and coming out with something that just was highly infectious, and we haven't been able to shake since.
Amazing. So this is your fifth film, is that correct? This is your fifth film that you've currently made together?
Yes, this is number 5.
Wow. Okay, so since 2013, you've gone out and you've made 5 feature films. How have you found that as an adventure, as a learning experience, you know, through the years?
I myself have found that I've learned so much about horror and all different kinds of movies by, you know, doing it myself, hands-on, together as a team. And I've also learned a lot about these guys. I think film is the best way to bond with one another, and I love it.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. Because this is our 5th film, you always learn something from the last film you've done, and going to these festivals teaches us so much. And I kind of have to say that I think sometimes we've learned the most from our mistakes. Like, our failures have shot us forward probably more than our successes, and that's always really fun. It hurts to make mistakes and fail sometimes, but boy, you sure learn fast. You don't like doing it twice.
It's kind of like being given, you have 50 words to tell a story. And you learn how to economize and use what you have. And that, in a way, has been a great gift. We don't have a lot of extraneous stuff thrown our way that we have to juggle. We just use what we have. And that can be a wonderful exercise.
Did you guys always want to do a horror film? Because your first few were more more sort of dramas. I mean, I know you did the Hatred before this, and that was kind of sort of a horror, sort of period horror. But was it something that you always had at the back of your mind, a view to making a horror movie one day?
Well, John can answer this how he wants, but I know that I think we've always liked horror forever, even though we first initially made drama films. But you said John and I made The Hatred, a kind of experimental horror film, and discovered that we loved horror and we wanted to make more of it and kind of extend upon what we made in The Hatred.
Yeah, I can add to that the horror. I mean, The Hatred was kind of a test run to see whether we wanted to make another, like, it was kind of a test run to see, do we like making horror? And we loved it. And we learned that we love the horror crowd, we love the horror community. And we also learned that you're allowed to be far more creative and have a lot more fun and take a lot more chances when you're making a horror movie than when you're making a regular drama. It's kind of confined to reality, or at least we had put those rules on ourselves.
Amazing. Can we talk about The Hatred a little bit, actually, because we've managed to include The Hatred on our Blu-ray release, and we're so pleased that we have done that. It's something we really like to do, is when we release a film, not just release a film, but a contextual partner to the film. And The Hatred is very much sort of a similar ilk, you know, the style, the mood, etc. Tell us a little bit more about The Hatred. I've got some images here I can bring up on screen, but it's an 18th century Civil War story.
Yeah, so The Hatred, I mean, first of all, like we said, it was a test run for whether we wanted to do horror. So we wanted to see, basically it was a cinematic test run, and it's just a very dark poem about hatred. And it was shot right after our last election here in America. And it's not political in any way, but I think it's a bit of a metaphor for where America is right now. We're kind of, unfortunately, a little bit filled with hatred. And so we wanted to make a dark poem about hatred. And that's what it is. It was just a pleasure to make. And we had great people that we worked with doing it.
Yeah,
it's really intense. It's kind of hard going, but in a really good way.
Yeah, it's definitely because it's not like, hey, let's tackle a whole lot of themes. We wanted to tackle just one theme, which was hatred, and we strayed from it, and it, in fact, it streamlined the process of making it and allowed us to kind of just work on themes that you can see. I think what's fun about the hatred being included with The Deeper You Dig that you guys did, Arrow, put together, is that you can see all the lessons that we learned that were good and we applied to The Deeper You Dig, and you can also see the lessons that we learned that weren't good, and hopefully we didn't apply them to The Deeper You Dig. So it's a great it's a great little I think I don't know, what do you call that? It's interesting, that's all. It's an interesting, fun little thing that it's a test run.
Okay, how did you find shooting in the snow then? Because you've obviously gone back and shot in the snow for The Deeper You Dig. I'd have thought that would have been extremely challenging to do.
I think that you can tell that we like shooting in the winter. You know, we did it in the hatred, we did it in The Deeper You Dig. It's just so cinematic, it's so beautiful, and it's so stark. I really like the contrast that you can get when you're in the snow, and it really captures that mood.
Blood and snow are good bed mates.
Red and white, yeah, absolutely.
Couple of questions in the chat. Kev Hurt is asking, does it come in a slipcase? Yes, it does come in a slipcase. And Mason Jordan has a question for the filmmakers. What was your guys' inspiration to make horror movies, and why that genre? I mean, I think we've kind of touched on it slightly already, but what specifically was it about horror that made you want to see if you could tackle that with hatred, and then kind of moving on to The Deeper You Dig?
I think that something I love about horror, whether I'm watching it or making a horror film, is I think it serves a purpose similar to nightmares, where it's a playing field where you can exercise all kinds of crazy demons or fears, terror, and it's fun. I would never want things to happen to my daughter that happened in The Deeper You Dig. That's for sure. But in a way, it's kind of like I can exercise those fears through the medium of filmmaking. And I really I love ghost stories, and for me, I really wanted to be involved in a ghost story. I love the creepiness of something that lingers and haunts beyond our realm.
Yeah, for me, horror is fun because I have a ton of nightmares, so it's I might as well use them for something other than not getting much sleep. So that's one good thing. But I think what's really fun about making horror is Toby loves drama. So horror movies are really just drama with wonderful action. Like, you're allowed to do more. Like, it's hard to find, like, when you're shooting dramas, the emotions are the action. But what's fun about horror movies is you can actually have physical action that's really blatant and can be over the top and can be artistic. And so making horror is like, it's just a fun painting. It's a great palette because you can do so much and have so much fun as a creator.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Some really amazing, really disturbing dream sequences in the film. Did those come from actual dreams, or did you take inspiration from elsewhere for these?
I can speak from someone who sleeps with John every night. That is
me.
It's because I'm always having to wake him in the night saying, it's okay. It's just because he's always dreaming about killing. And I always say to him, well, who'd you kill this time? So John can probably say which ones really were influenced by his nightmares.
Well, I mean,
burying someone.
Yeah, I bury people in my dreams a lot, and they're going to be dug up. And I always feel so guilty, and I also feel like I've changed. Like, I wish this body wasn't being dug up because I'm not the person I was. So let's not psychoanalyze that. This was such a fun, since it's burying people is my recurring nightmare. It was such an easy theme to grab and for me to act through. So it was a real joy to do that. Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear you say that in your dreams you're the aggressor, you're not the victim.
Right. You know, and another thing that I do, and this is what's fun about our next movie that we're working on, even though we're not talking about that yet, but in my nightmares, I learned as a kid, instead of being chased by the monster, to turn and chase the monster back.
Right.
And so what would happen, my mom taught me that, actually. She was like, stop running from the monster, turn and chase the monster. And so it was a great thing. So now I chase darkness. I can't see the monster. And that's the theme that we're picking up next on our next movie, is chasing darkness, that you don't know, like, the power of what's coming. And that's what gives you goosebumps, you know, is that fear of what you're hunting.
Amazing. The visuals of all of that, the behind the gates of the Seven Circles, are just phenomenal. Where did all of that, were you influenced by anything on that? The music and the clash of the contrasting imagery, it's phenomenal.
Well, I think it came from a lot of influences. I think this goes back to the idea of having fun with cinematography. The Seven Circles were, number one, a great way to show the 7 cycles of grief, but it was also a really fun way for us to have a good time with cinematography. So we shot a lot of 7 circles, and those were the 7 circles that survived. Do you know what I mean? Like a bunch of them hit the floor. But I mean, one thing that's really been fun was I was scared out of my mind and sleepless when I was 12 years old and I saw Phantasm.
Right.
So I just had to be that guy. Like, again, instead of facing the monster, I needed to be the tall man. And so the scene with the snake is me exercising the tall man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think another thing was, and this is kind of gross, but it's fun. It's who we are. We live way out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a lot of hunting and also a lot of roadkill and a lot of dead animals. Mm-hmm. And so we collected them and put them in the freezer, knowing that we were going to make this horrible dream sequence scenes. We weren't sure how to use them, but we used the coyote, we used the deer, we used snakes and rabbits and squirrels and all sorts of dead animals that basically had filled up our freezer. And so part of some of the 7 circles was, it was time just to get the animals out of our freezer.
Dinner.
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit about the photography, because it's stunning? I think the cinematography is absolutely stunning in the film, all the night shots, and you kind of share the cinematography, don't you? And I think, Zelda, you co-directed a lot, directed a lot of it as well. But there's some beautiful shots, and I was watching it again today, and like when Ivy screams in the car and there's that smash cut to Ivy in the river, is just phenomenal. And there's one scene I couldn't work out. It's like a close-up of a brake light in a rear view mirror that's just a stunning shot. How do you share the cinematography, and how has that fed in? You know, how is your enjoyment in cinematography fed into your filmmaking?
Well, I love cinematography. It's my favorite part of making films. I feel like I can really express myself through that. My favorite thing in cinematography is capturing movement. I know that my dad and my mom really like static shots, because Toby was like a theater major, right? And she'll focus a lot on like the static shot. I love in movies when they have moving shots, like Wes Anderson. I'm in love with that. So I really tried to put that into our film. You go on with that.
Yeah, I think Zelda really did bring motion to The Deeper You Dig. If you watch our other movies, even though Zelda was also in on the cinematography with all that, we generally used the tripod for a lot of shots, partly because we had to, because there was no cameraman, and sometimes we were all in the scenes together. So it's easy to set the camera up. But yeah, Zelda brings motion and emotion to the whole idea of cinematography, and I love what she's done. And as she grows older, I think she just gets smarter and smarter, and she's teaching me so much about that. I love the starkness and the contrast of cinematography. That's why I love shooting in the winter, because the black and the white, they go so well with the emotional themes of what we like, and they're just wonderful looking. You know, Ansel Adams, you know, is the kind of artist that I love looking at in photography. And so in cinematography, I think we're teaching each other a lot. I think as Zelda and I team up on motion and vision, I think we'll get stronger. And, you know, we're just having a lot of fun together now, talking about every shot.
And where we live in the mountains, we live in the Catskill Mountains, upstate New York, it's just constantly throwing me beautiful stuff to shoot. Every season comes with gifts, every season. And so for us, we don't have any special lighting or equipment. We were to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and she does.
And how to what extent, how rigorously do you plan things in advance? I mean, I think on one of the extras on the Blu-ray, you talk about, you know, taking inspiration from, you know, the environments or the locations that are available to you. Does that extend to, you know, thinking, hey, this would be a good location for a scary scene, let's grab the camera and shoot something? Or is it much more kind of rigorously planned in advance with, you know, storyboards and so on?
It's often very spontaneous. We'll sometimes have a loose idea of what we want to do. That's something I like to do. I tend to overthink things, and I like to connect the dots. So sometimes we'll have a loose plan, but we really don't stick to it too much. It's just a jumping off point, and usually it's spontaneous. If there's a crazy list outside, so we say, okay, come on, let's go. We got to shoot. Or Zelda will say, hey, I really like the way this pattern of leaves looks. Let me grab the camera. So there's spontaneity is a constant. Yeah.
It must feel nice to have that freedom of spontaneity, you know, that freedom to just go out and do what you want without, you know, the too much investment or, you know, money people investing in films to dictate what they want. You have complete freedom of what you do.
Yeah, it's so incredibly lucky. And now we're getting used to it. Like, I don't know that we could work any other way at this point, because we're so used to, like, if it's foggy, like Toby said it best. Toby likes to know what each scene is trying to say. But Zelda and I like to know, well, where do we want to say that scene? What's it want to look like? So what's fun is Toby knows the story ideas, and Zelda and I get to think about, well, where do we do that? In what situation? In the fog, in the rain, in the snow? And so luckily we don't have a crew that we have to, you know, put on hold. And we also don't have producers that are, you know, scaring us. So we can wait for the fog. And it's really fun. One of the nicest things about being a family of filmmakers is we sit in the woods a lot waiting for the light to be right or a cloud to move.
Yeah.
And that's so fun. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I like to say that our business meetings are on the way to soccer practice or while my mom is making some Brussels sprouts for dinner.
Make really good Brussels sprouts.
We've got a question coming in here. Where was it again? Here. Sorry, the fight scene, without giving too much away, I guess, between Toby and John in the DPD, fantastic. How was it like filming that?
Well, thanks. That was a cold winter day, and I need to bring in Trey Lindsay, our special effects guy, who's our honorary member of the Addams Family Wonder Wheel gang. He came to shoot that day because Zelda was in school, so she couldn't shoot it. And it was a cold winter day inside the house that John was restoring, and we hadn't choreographed anything. We just kind of had a loose idea. Well, just so we don't get hurt, why don't you push me down here and then pretend to stab me here, and there you go.
But you know, it was a good fight. Like, I think the hardest thing is Toby's a boxer, so I know she can throw a punch, but she's such a nice person. She didn't want to throw a punch, so it took about 20 minutes before she really socked me one. And then we got that going, we were really moving. You know, I think also what was fun about that fight scene was the old dusty house kicked up this wonderful atmosphere. Like, it was really a real dust up, you know, and that's another example of environment. Like, we didn't plan that. It just suddenly we were fighting and rolling around, and the dust was kicking up and the light was coming in. And it was one of those moments that was just pure luck and turned out to be really wonderful.
Was that house in the script, or was it a location you knew about that you kind of wrote into the script? Because it's a gorgeous looking dilapidated building that really fits.
Well, that house is where I worked for the last 2 years to pay for the pizza as we filmed this movie. So yeah,
Right.
so part of the reason
I did into the script.
I mean, that house actually inspired the green light button to this movie, because I pulled it apart and looked at the bones of the house and was like, you guys, we got to do this now, because before I build it back up, it's just so beautiful, you know? So yeah, the house was real character and we loved it.
There's a question just come in from Carl
And
Hobday.
now it's beautiful. Oh.
No, that's all right. You carry on, Toby.
Yeah, no, now there's someone renting it, and it's amazing. The thing that was cool too, just one other thing about the house was that house was a metaphor for the change that was going on, especially with Kurt. I mean, as John was literally putting up walls to the house, and the house was growing skin. The character of Kurt, as Echo was infiltrating him, was growing skin. Her identity is rising within him. So the house is just another character in the film.
And we were hoping that it would be finished so that we're not supposed to give anything away, but as the transition was complete, we wanted the house transition to be complete too. But any carpenters out there know that everything takes twice as long as you expect. So.
I'm glad you mentioned Trey Lindsay. I'm sorry. I'm glad you mentioned Trey Lindsay earlier, because I wanted to ask about him, because he did some amazing practical and digital special effects for the film. Was this the first time that you worked with him, and how did you and him come to each other's attention?
Well, I had a friend who had worked with us not editing, but like putting together some stuff before, Robert Huntley, who's a wonderful friend of mine. And I just asked him, hey, are you interested in doing effects? And because we want to have some effects in our next movie. And he said he couldn't, but he introduced us to Trey Lindsay. We wrote him. Just our very first conversation with him, he talked like us and he acted like us, and we knew we had found someone that we really liked. And then he did he actually showed us a clip that he had done of cutting off someone's head, and it just looked so awesome. And we were like, yes, let's do stuff like that. And the first thing that he did was our title trailer, where the D drops down. And you know what? We just love him. That's the best way to put it.
And he's so smart. He knows everything about movies, especially the horror genre. I mean, he probably knows every film in the Arrow canon alphabetically. And so we learned so much from him. It's nonstop, the education we get. And he's just the most lovable guy in the world. I mean, it would take a lot to work to have someone come into our fold, because we're very particular and we have our thing. And Trey was just right from the get-go. Love. And
another thing to say is we are a trio, and we're used to working together, and we work very randomly, and it's, we got our sense of humor and all that stuff. The one beautiful thing about Trey, beyond his incredible talent, is he always says yes. And everybody out there in the world knows that when you work with somebody, you want someone that says yes. Not, well, let me think about it, or no, or I don't know. He always says yes. I could say, could you fly me to the moon and back? He'd say yes. And then he'd have to figure it out. But he always says yes, and he always is positive. And there's nothing that is more priceless than that when you work with people.
Sounds like you found someone really, really good to work with. That brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is he working with you on your next film?
Of course. We love him much, yeah. And, he's learned a lot too. Like, we go to these festivals and we read the reviews, and they mean a lot to us. And, you get good reviews and you get bad reviews, and you learn a lot. And we've all learned what we did well and what we maybe didn't do as well, and him too. And together, the four of us are steaming forward, saying, hey, let's do better. Whatever people didn't, whatever didn't fly as high as we would have liked it to, let's improve on that. And so those are the conversations that we're having going forward, is let's stick with what we did good and let's fix what was criticized.
It's a brilliant attitude, isn't it? I love that attitude, whether it be an athlete or an artist that's never satisfied with their previous performance, or at least, you know, happy, but how can we better it next time? How can we improve? How can we learn? It's a wonderful attitude to have.
Oh, good, and it's fun.
Can I throw in something real quick? Just to say that working with you guys
Right.
at Arrow has been the highlight for us, because we always like to say how much we're learning from you, and just your work ethic, and it's been such a pleasure. So we're very grateful.
It is a dream come true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, as I said to you before, the same is true 100-fold. You know, in reverse, it's been such a pleasure working with you, and your kind of sort of enthusiasm and collaboration and sort of openness to ideas as we've, you know, discussed things like whether it's, you know, what extras to put on, or, you know, including the hatred or the packaging. You've all been, you know, absolute delights to work with.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Love it. No, we really love to work with filmmakers. We like to be as collaborative as possible. You know, it's all part of the creative, you know, endeavor to get the film out and seen, and it's all part of that process. So, you know, I'm glad you've had a good time, or, you know, an enjoyable time in this run up to this release. There was another question here from Carl Hobday. Did you rigidly stick to the script, or were you open to improv? Were there any moments?
I tend to say that we have a basic idea of what we want to have for the entire movie and what we want to have in a specific scene. But I like to say that we improv a lot. But Toby always has a set script that we stick to and can move off of if we want to.
Yeah, it's always just a jumping off point. If there are certain key moments that I know we would regret not catching, we'll do that. But then we always branch off in 3 different directions usually, because there are 3 of us now, and Zelda's co-directing this. There are 3 directors on this one. The way it works is we usually do things 3 ways. We'll have a set idea, and usually that might be something I really want to do that I've written down, and we'll go that way. And then Zelda will do her way, and John will do her way, and then we just duke it out in the editing room, you know, when we're editing, to see what flies best, or what serves the story best.
Yeah, the clips never lie. It's really fun. You think you know what you're doing when you're shooting, and you think like everyone thinks their idea is the best. But when you get home, the clip just doesn't lie. You put it up there, and it just tells you which one's good, and it's really fun like that. We also have the advantage of the fact that we get to shoot, and that evening we edit our stuff. Like, we don't send it to somebody who then sends it back and asks us questions. We go home, we look at it, we edit it, and it tells us whether we succeeded or not. And that goes for an entire scene. Like, we, in the Deeper You Dig, we shot some scenes 3 or 4 times. And in a way, it's all okay. Like, we have no pressure. And so what we do is we learn, like, well, what was good, what was bad, and we just keep going until finally we nail it down. So there is a lot of advantages to the fact that, you know, it is just the 3 of us doing this indie style.
Do you ever have any big arguments, or has there ever been something specific where you couldn't agree on a route? Or?
I don't think that we're really an arguing film. If we're ever having a little dispute about what we want to be filmed, we'll just film each of our different perspectives, and then, like John said, see which one turns out best in the editing process.
Yeah, this is how hot it gets. Like, this is going to be the height. This is an argument. This is what an argument in the Addams family sounds like. All right. We'll shoot you right first, and then we're going to shoot Zelda's, and then we're going to shoot mine. Are you ready? Action.
Are you done now?
Are you done with yours?
Are
you done with yours? Did you get everything you like?
Because I like to go now.
Okay.
Yeah. That's usually how it
there,
goes.
you just got an Addams argument.
Amazing. Right.
I guess that's the joy of the technology as well, is that you get to shoot kind of almost unlimited amounts of footage, and then, you know, make your decision in the editing room, as opposed to being like, well, we've got a finite amount of film stock, you know, that we can use, so, you know, we have to get it in one take.
So true.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Also, Zelda. I mean, our kids. When we shot our first film, our kids were 6 and 11. Lulu was often studying abroad when we shot this, so she wasn't involved with this film, but she has been with all our others. And the kids were 6 and 11 when we first started shooting. And so sometimes through the course of a year, Zelda would grow, you know, so we'd have to be very creative with, if we had to go back and shoot something again to make it fit better in our story, we'd have to do things like put her in a hat, you know, obscure her in some way. That's what happens when your kid is young. Not growing.
Amazing. The whole boyhood film that almost carry on for another 8 years. No, it's phenomenal. Toby, could I ask you about there's a scene in the film where there's a reflective moment, and it's over a tarot table with yourself and some incredible clown makeup. Where did all of that come from? Was that, who designed that? Was that part of Trey's makeup effects, or?
That one, actually, the makeup was actually John did that day, just with paper and water.
Flour.
Yeah, paper, flour, and water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had just bought a clown nose at the store, I guess.
And the jacket was from a movie that we started and then we rejected. So it was kind of like something from a movie that failed.
Okay.
And the genesis of that scene was we'd already done the tarot scene with Mrs. Minsky, who's played by my mom, rest in peace. And she is wearing lots of makeup in that scene. And my character is such a shitty person, you know, bilking this woman of her money in this fake seance. So it was a great scene of karma, the clown scene. To act opposite, for Ivy to act opposite herself and have to swallow the same shit she gave someone else, and now she really does want to talk to her dead daughter, you know. And so what a clown she was. It all fell into place so beautifully.
Do you, any of you have any belief in tarot? Have you had your cards read?
I'll just say we didn't know much about tarot before, but Sasha Graham was introduced to us at the beginning of our shooting, and she's a world-renowned tarot expert, and one of my most favorite friends, and so she really introduced the world of tarot to us, and we were so grateful for her because she basically said, hey, you know, there are all these wonderful archetypal images in these cards, but they can go in so many different directions. So it made us feel like, hey, you know, we have some freedom. We can use some of the set directions that the cards go, but to kind of send them to our design, you know. So no, that was my introduction to tarot. Really, this.
Well, you'll like this out there. Believing in tarot and card readings and things like that. We were in New York City and we had just gotten some ice cream and we were walking by a tarot card reader as we were making The Deeper You Dig. And I was licking my ice cream and we walked by the window and the tarot card reader, you know, goes like, come in, you know, and I looked at Zelda, I'm like, oh my God. And I put my hand in my pocket right after I had dissed this probably wonderful woman that was going to tell me the truth about everything. And a piece of glass from my iPhone went an inch into my fingernail and it hurt so freaking bad. And then I had to go to a deli and get the deli owner to get under my fingernail with a toothpick and wedge out this piece of glass. So yes, I absolutely believe in tarot cards.
I can have my card read every time. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, and what else? I mean, what other challenges were there when you were filming? There's a great scene where you're levitating Zelda. Was that really done for real, or was that sneakily done in post?
Yeah, Trey Lindsay did that. He rocked it. We actually filmed it in that forest. I stood on top of a tree that like laid across. Yeah, that tree right there. I just stood on that and they filmed me from below and, you know, and that's where I did my lines. And then Trey added, I think, lower body to the top of my body to create a floating figure. And he rocked it.
And he added leaves and he added lot of things. Like Trey and I had a lot of back and forths about how to get this to look super real, because we didn't want to take it away from maybe one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie, you know, that really nails down the whole theme of what we were trying to get at. And Trey worked super hard on it, and I think it's just a really honest scene that the effect looks wonderful and doesn't take away. You know, you don't sit there and look at it like it's an effect. It was really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mason Jordan is asking, now I know the answer to this, but the people in the audience won't necessarily. Was this filmed during the COVID-19 pandemic? And if so, did that change anything about the filming process?
So actually, can I answer that? You mind? We're filming our next movie during the COVID pandemic, and basically it's a bit of a metaphor for the COVID-19 pandemic. No, we were lucky. The Deeper You Dig was shot a good year before COVID came around. But we're taking this pandemic and we're shooting a movie during it, about it, but disguised as a horror movie.
Have you found any challenges whilst shooting this recent one?
I've found that we're really fortunate as a family that we can do this because we're always together, and it's a hard time right now, COVID, but I think we're taking the best advantage of it and making a film. And now we're traveling across the US. We just bought a trailer that you're sitting in right now. And so that's what we've been up to this past month, filming, and we're in Indiana right now.
Yeah, we're lucky in the fact that we shot most of the real drama of the movie back home in the Catskills, and now we're traveling around and shooting some of the more dreamy sequences as we travel around the United States. Because those of you who have traveled around the United States, you know that there's like white sands, and there's forest fires, and there's beautiful mountains. There's lots of great scenery that we can grab that can really help the cinematography of our next movie. So as sad as COVID is for so many people, we're lucky that we're able to do this. And we're also lucky we're a group of three that doesn't need to get tested because we're not around anybody. We're just isolated in this trailer traveling.
It's a wonderful way to be, actually, isn't it? I've one of my friends, Dan Martin, who does our podcast, he's a special effects artist, does a lot of films, and he's recently did a 2-week shoot where everybody was isolated in the one hotel, and that hotel could only contain the crew for 2 weeks, and they had to be tested. Just on a shoot in Malta where it's been rigorous testing. So shoots are happening, but they're having to be very cautious, where you guys can go off drive, get amazing production value in all of that gorgeous American scenery, be in your own bubble. You know, it's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah, it's I think the only way to make a movie now is if you have the money to make it safe, or you have zero money and you just are tiny.
Yeah.
We're the latter.
Go on, Mike.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say another audience question. Carl Hobday has a suitably gruesome question for you. With the body parts chopped up, are they made from scratch or bought in and tinkered with? Not sure how you want to begin answering that one.
So yeah, the body parts are a mix of roadkill and fake blood, and then some Halloween parts. Like there's a big scene where I do chop her up, sawzall her up into little tiny pieces, which was so fun. And that when you kind of look at that gore, that's a mix of basically real guts and fake blood, and then some Halloween parts all mixed together, and they really gelled really well.
They did.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, suitably gruesome. Can we talk a little bit about the music? Because you wrote all the music for this film as well, and you've got your own band, and we've got some music videos on the Blu-ray release. How do you approach writing the music for a film? Is it as you're filming, or is it afterwards? And there's a nice variation of different styles in the film.
Well, we're in a band called Hellbender, and you can hear one of our songs at the end of the movie called Lovely. But as for the sound effects, I mean, and drones and stuff, John can kind of talk about that.
I like to, since editing can become a little bit, you can go down wormholes, and I think I only have about 2 or 3 hours of good creative energy when I'm editing. So one of the ways that I kind of break that is I just go work on music, and it's something that's just really free and really fun. And it was very exciting to work on the DPU Digs music because I got to experiment with sounds and do things that you just can't do in a band. Since it was a horror movie, so I recorded a lot of music, and probably used, like, in the end, there was only about 5% that was any good. So the answer is I sat around a lot, and it was more of a little vacation from editing. And so I was able to make those sounds and make that soundtrack as the visuals were in my brain. So it was really fun. I love it, and it's a fun way to work.
It's interesting. John will record a lot of the sound effects, and I'll be walking up the stairs and it'll creak or something, and John will say, "Hey, do that again. Let me record that real quick."
Always creeping around recording. Is there anything you didn't do, John, on set? You did pretty much everything. Wrote, directed, shot, edited, music.
Well, I would say that none of anything that I did would be any good at all if Toby isn't sitting there making it honest and making it worthwhile. Like, what I love about working with Toby is, I could do all this stuff and it would be empty. But what Toby does is make it full and real and meaningful. And she's very careful about, like, our movie's about the 7 circles, but what I love about what Toby does is our stories have lots of little stories that have full circles. Like, she doesn't leave those circles undone. And so I think what's fun about our teamwork is that Toby takes on the intellectual part of filmmaking that is priceless, that you can't do anything good without it. Like, we can have guts and animals and kills and stuff like that, and beautiful scenery that Zelda and I shoot together and things like that. But if you're not saying something that hits people's hearts, then all that stuff doesn't matter. And so my answer is that I do a lot of things, but none of them would be worth anything without the brains and Zelda's talent making them all come together,
I think because if it weren't for Toby, the entire movie would just be a bunch of heads chopped off. And
yes.
No storyline.
And it would be longer. It would be like 2 hours of heads being chopped off.
That would probably be the film I make.
But also our kids, like, we've always said that Lulu and Zelda are our bullshit monitors, because they even when they were little, we would throw something their way and say, "What do you think about this?" And they say, "It doesn't feel real," when they're popcorn. I don't like that. No,
it's dumb.
They've always been really good, been wonderful collaborators, and now having Zelda as an actual co-director, she's just got some, she's got a lot of good stuff going on in there too.
Which leads into a question here we've got from Melinda. Clearly you all have immense respect for each other. I'm curious if Zelda ever needs to call cut or time out on movie time, and have you both just be parents?
It's interesting. I never think of them as like, these are my parents, I think that we're honestly just 3 best friends, and my sister too, 4 best friends, and I think that we're totally equals, and I love that. I guess my away time from filming is just soccer practice and school, and I think that's a great enough getaway. Otherwise, I love getting to spend time with them, and I don't find a lot of time where I have to say, stay away from me. I can't do this right now. I'm always just looking forward to do stuff with them.
Nice.
I will say, as a mom, there have been times there were some scenes, typically the bathtub scene in the film, where I was really uncomfortable, and I just kind of, it was hard for me to shake off my mother hat, even though I knew that the film was really served by the brutality of that scene. That one was hard for me, and I needed them, especially Zelda, to say, "No, it's okay, Mom. Just like it's all right. You can do these horrible things to me in
The
the
most-
realm
yeah.
of film.
The most gruesome scenes are the most fun ones to film.
They always are. Yeah. Question from Carl Hopday again. As your success grows, do you think your crew will, or would you like to just keep things as they are? Would you like to work on a bigger film with a bigger crew at any point, or are you happy as you are?
I used to always say, oh, I want to be, you know, a big celebrity. I want to be in Hollywood and all that stuff. And maybe I still do want to do that. But as of now, I'm really content with doing what we're doing and just building up what we have right now. And then when I go to college, we'll see what happens. I don't know about them though.
What do you think, Toby?
I think I wouldn't be opposed to having. I think if we could keep the integrity of what we do, so that it feels very small, we could benefit from something larger. But I will say, I am so happy having what we have, and I really do love that. So if this is how it was going to be for forevermore, I wouldn't be bummed out or anything.
Yeah, my answer is that this has become our lifestyle, and it's a really fun, beautiful lifestyle. And the fact that we're here talking with you and working with Arrow was a huge, huge moment in our life, because it kind of legitimized our lifestyle in a sense, a business way, like where you guys said, "Hey, we accept you." Like, you invited us into this kind of wonderful room that says that we can continue doing it the way we are doing it. And so my answer is, I'm very happy doing what we're doing. It's kind of great. Not kind of great. It's wonderful.
I agree. I think it's absolutely amazing that you guys do this, and it's really inspiring that we don't necessarily have to just go out and earn lots of money and do this and that and contribute. We can just take time out to create and make things and just be. I find what you guys are doing incredibly inspiring, and it's a big part of why we wanted to work with you.
It's awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm kind of running out of questions, unless Michael, you've got any more. I mean, I'm keen to know what a cinnamon coffee cake cappuccino tastes like. That's mentioned twice in the film. It sounds amazing.
Way too sweet. I'm a black coffee guy, so no.
Okay.
Not at all. Okay, I got a question then for you guys.
Absolutely.
Recommend us each a movie that we should watch. What's your hot recommendation right now that we should watch? Because we're watching horror movies nonstop now. So what can you tell us?
On our Arrow player, we currently have the Russian film Why Don't You Just Die, which we released earlier this year.
Another one I worked on.
Sorry, what?
That was another one I worked on.
Yeah, another one you worked on. Directorial debut by an outstanding Russian director, Kirill Sokolov. Thoroughly recommend it. It's kind of a little bit Tarantino-esque, all set in one room. 3 or 4 cast members, all intertwining backstories. Beautifully comic, gleeful, violent, dark comedy. It's brilliant.
Oh, I love it already. It sounds great.
What else? What else have I been?
Well, I mean, I'll be boring and say, I've name checked Dario Argento already tonight, so Arrow has been possibly familiar with him already, but if not, I mean, Suspiria, Deep Red, Crystal Plumage, Phenomena, all classics. I kind of always quite like to do a kind of sort of a month of horror for Halloween throughout October and watch as many horror movies as I can. I've been revisiting a few favorites. One that I really love, which I hadn't seen for close to a decade, is May by Lucky McKee, which was made in, I think, 2000 or 2001 thereabouts, and it's a kind of character drama horror movie about a lonely woman who is desperate to make a friend, but is kind of disillusioned with people because she likes individual parts of them, but never likes the entire person. And she remembers something that her mom once said to her, which was, if you can't find a friend, make one.
I love Frankenstein.
We love Lucky McKee.
Sounds like Frankenstein.
Yeah, Lucky McKee, really do check him
Can I
out.
ask,
yeah.
can I ask one more question? Do
Sure.
you mind? What's you guys? Which movie can you recommend? Because we're working on a movie that's not about a witch, but it's in similar themes. And if you guys had a movie of that theme to recommend, what would that be?
Movie about a witch.
Which,
obviously, The Witch is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great.
Witch. A film we released, actually, it's got those sort of elements called Hagasusa, A Heathen's Curse.
Yeah.
We released that in the UK only, but that one's really worth checking out. Hagasusa, Hagasusa. That's an incredible. It was a student project, actually, I believe, a German student. But again, similar to Deep You Dig, incredible visuals, a really impressive tone. Yeah, Hagasusa is worth checking out. I must admit, yeah. What other witch movies do you recommend, Mike?
I've already name checked Suspiria, so I can't go back there. I'm just looking at my shelf at the moment and trying to see if I don't think I've got that many witchy movies.
Well, it's good because it's a hard time answering.
You've got a stump. Yeah.
I think that slot needs to be filled.
Yeah, I think you're right.
There's a gap in the market. Okay, amazing, guys. Look, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, really nice to talk to you. It's really good to see you and just talk to you about the film. It's yeah, really, really incredible. If anyone is watching who hasn't seen it, please, please, please go out and see it. If you have seen it, please share. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Just thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Well, thank you so much for making such a great movie and for being such a pleasure to work with.
And thanks everyone for joining us today and asking us questions. We love it and we appreciate it.
Brilliant. You're amazing. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Toby. Thank you so much, Zelda. Please keep us in the loop with the new film. Send us anything as soon as you can. We'd love to take a look at it. So do keep us in the loop. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Back at Fright Fest next year.
Happy Shoptober. And thank you.
Many thanks. Many thanks to all of you who are watching. And join us next week for our next live stream. We have Kevin Smith joining us from talking about our release of Mallrats. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.